Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. A little bit of a different setting for Q&A Tuesday today. As you can see, I'm in sunny Aruba, where the weather never disappoints. It's 88, about 85 and sunny all day, every day, with a slight breeze, which you guys will probably hear as I'm talking. So, let's see. Literally got a question at 2 a.m. this morning via email from KK. Hey Roman, love the channel and the information you provide. Keep up the good work. Thank you. A few questions I have. Why do major watch manufacturers such as Rolex and AP seem to disregard making timepieces out of sterling silver? Is it because silver tends to oxidize, or is there another reason? You know what I love? I love when people answer their own question within their question. Yes, silver does oxidize, which makes it very unattractive after some time of wear. Silver is also not as durable of a material, let's say that of gold and stainless steel especially. And for the most part, it's just not that big a deal in terms of precious metal. So therefore, it's tough to charge up for silver. When you make a gold watch, let's say a gold President or a gold Royal Oak, there is some sort of a justification for the retail price tag. Well, with silver, you couldn't really achieve that. But for the most part, I think it's just not a good material to work with because it does oxidize. And if it oxidizes on the inside, imagine what that would do to the movement of the watch. And that's really probably the main reason. So you kind of answered your own question there. How does the market for pre-owned women's Rolexes compare to that of men's watches? And are they hard to sell in a male-dominated hobby? Yes, the resale value is horrible on Rolex ladies' watches just the same. I talked about how ladies' watches don't resell very well to begin with, and it's basically because it's a numbers game, and it is no different for Rolex. They do not hold their value just the same. And last, you asked about what is your opinion on the vintage stainless steel Rolex 6614 model, and what is the going rate, as information on it seems a few and far in between. So we're talking about an early Oyster from the 50s. Last one I saw, it had like a cool cream dial on it. I know that the going rate for them on a wholesale level is a couple of grand. They don't really sell well or resell well. It's one of those models that's often not talked about or collected, etc. So it sort of suffers the fate of some of these older Rolexes that never made it out to be much of anything in terms of collectability. And that's why you don't see a lot of information of them out there, because not a lot of people buy them and sell them. They're just not trading. But as I said, I think the value is anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. I've seen one as high up as $8,000 on Chrono 24, but I think that price is way too high. I've never bought them, never sold them, never traded them, so I can't really tell you, too big of an opinion. I know it's just one of those older run-of-the-mill Rolexes that don't fetch a whole lot of money, nor do they have a whole lot of desirability. But if it's something you like, you go out and buy one. You should be able to pick one up under $4 grand, easy. Next question comes from G. Gilroy. Killing it. Thank you. Something for your Q&A now. Used Chrono Sports. Daytona versus Breguet Type 22. Where is your money and why? Well, I'm going to say simply Daytona. And again, although I don't say watches are a collectible, they're an expensive toy and watches don't hold their value. From a resale perspective, from a collectability perspective, from a holding value perspective, Daytona every single time. History-wise, in terms of comparing the two brands, it's very tough to compare Rolex to Breguet. Breguet, arguably the godfather of all watchmaking, having created this tiny little thing we call the tourbillon that everybody else and their mother is using today. It's very hard to compare Breguet to Rolex. In terms of sellability, Rolex is number one. As far as watchmaking aspect of it, I'm obviously going to go with Breguet. You guys know I own the original Type 20 Breguet from the 50s, right? So, I'm somewhat biased. I like the Breguet Type 22. But all in all, I would still go with the Daytona versus the Type 22. Next one comes from Joseph Freeman. Great channel, a must watch. I've learned more about the secondary market watching your videos over last year than I have during my whole time as a collector. Thank you. That actually is awesome, and I love hearing stuff like this. I enjoyed your appearance on the trading desk last week. I actually went to visit my friends at Watchbox, and I joined one of their live streams. If you guys didn't see it, certainly check it out. I think it's part of my collab playlist, and you can see it on the Watchbox channel as well. How can a place like Goldberg Watchbox be an AD and a secondary player? I picked up my pre-owned AP 15202 from an AP AD and felt good about the condition and authenticity because they play on both sides of the street. But couldn't they take advantage of the watches trading above retail on the secondary market with having a direct line to the brand's distributors? Any thoughts are much appreciated. I'm surprised there's nobody behind me making faces yet. Well, this is a great question, actually. Well, first of all, Godberg and Watchbox. There's nothing wrong with that. I can go and become an authorized dealer tomorrow. I don't want to. I don't want to open up a store. Not my cup of tea, so to speak. But you can. You can very well own two businesses and one has nothing to do with the other. But can those ADs take advantage of the hot pieces that are coming in, like say like Nautiluses or the 15202s or any of the Royal Oaks that are trading over lists, as well as Rolexes? Absolutely they can. Would I blame them for doing so? Absolutely not. Because I've told you guys before, to be an authorized dealer, when you pick up a line, you don't just get the 15202s, you get a whole lot of other stuff with it that doesn't sell as well, that you'd later have to discount or sometimes even lose money on, even as an AD. So yes, they can certainly take advantage of both. If you're playing both sides, you can certainly take advantage. I remember not too long ago, I was walking by Turnau in King of Prussia Mall, and in their window I saw two stainless steel Rolex Daytonas. This is pre-ceramic. This was a while ago. This was pre-ceramic. What's up, guys? You gonna say something? Or you're just gonna tickle my ear and walk away?
Yeah.
Okay, bye. I saw two stainless steel Daytonas in the window. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Am I in luck? I walk in there. I'm like, yeah, I want to buy those two Daytonas. They're like, well, those would be, I don't know, at the time I think they were trading at 14 or 15,000, which was the market price on them. And I'm like, 15,000? I'm like, they retail for whatever, 9,800 or whatever it was. They're like, no, those are pre-owned. We're selling them as pre-owned. And they were not pre-owned. They were brand new pieces that they received as an authorized Rolex dealer. They put them out in the window as pre-owned to try to get the premium. Again, is it a bad move to do? No, you can't blame them. I told you guys this before. They're not the big bad AD that's trying to screw you by doing so. It's just a way of them to recuperate some of the losses they'll take on the other watches. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. And last but not least, you said something here which actually caught my attention. I picked up a pre-owned AP 15202 from an AP AD and felt good about the condition and authenticity because they play on both sides of the street. You would be surprised how many ADs reach out to guys like us and buy these 15202s, these Royal Oaks, these hot Daytonas, because they're not getting the allocation and they already went through their allocation. You'd be shocked how many times an authorized dealer out there reaches out to a gray market dealer like myself to pick up these type of pieces. So you should feel warm and fuzzy inside regardless of whether you buy it from somebody that plays on both sides of the fence, AD and a gray market, or just AD. Hope this sheds a little bit of light into your question. Next question comes from Fernando Sanchez. Wearing your watch through airport security. This question made me think of wearing the watch through airport security customs, not simply the x-ray scan. Roman, can you explain more on the declaring the watch for customs protocol, please? Easy. The way watches are imported into the United States is they're actually broken down if you do it properly. As a consumer, if you're gonna go make a big purchase and you know you're coming back to the States, my suggestion to you is to get the help of a customs broker. The reason I say customs broker is because watches are not just imported based on their value. So it's not like you went out and bought a $10,000 watch and you got to pay an X percentage on a particular watch, right? There's a watch breakdown sheet that we use when we import this stuff. And I can maybe have Ian throw up an example of that. Bottom line is this, is the watches get broken down into pieces, right? Literally pieces. So there's a value on the case of the watch, there's a value on the type of strap the watch has, there's a value on the movement. You have to specify what type of movement it is, whether it's quartz, whether it's automatic, whether it's a manual wind. You also have to specify country of origin and things of that nature, right? Which is fairly simple. And then based on that, there's a value. If you took, let's say, a stainless steel watch, right? Where's most of the value on that watch? Most likely the movement. In fact, most of the value is in the movement of pretty much any watch. But when you get a gold case, it's a little bit different. So if there was a $10,000 watch, you basically have to set percentages on the strap, whether it's stainless steel or leather, with which you have to be really careful, because if it's a crocodile leather strap, you need a CITES license. So if you're buying a watch overseas, make sure you get on a cowhide strap. Otherwise, if you put crocodile straps, which is fish and wildlife, and they'll require you to fill out a CITES license, which you have to pay extra for. If it's a regular bracelet, if it's a regular movement, you have to specify the number of jewels the movement has. The more jewels the movement has, the cheaper it is. That means the more complex and the more valuable the watch is. There's zero fees on gold. So if the case is gold, you don't pay zero duties on it. So let's say you take those 5, 6, 7 different things, you break each watch down by that particular part, you assign a value to each part, and based on that, you pay a duty up to 4%. It's actually more expensive to bring in stainless steel watches than it is gold watches because you pay zero duties on gold, you only pay duties on the movement. It's up to 4 or 5% on the case value, but then if you're taking a $10,000 watch, let's say, and you put a value of, let's say, $2,000 on the case, let's say $7,500 on the movement and $500 on a strap, whatever it might be, right? You're going to pay 4% on the value of the case, so 4% of 2,000, you're paying whatever, 200, about $50 on that. On the movement, you're going to pay about 1.5%, so 8,000, 1.5%, so roughly about $85. All in all, you're going to pay a couple $100 on this watch if you add it all up. We actually, of course, bring this stuff in all the time, so we have it all automated. I have a particular spreadsheet that I fill out. I just plug in the numbers, I plug in the values and what type of watch it is, and all of a sudden it already spits out exactly what I'm going to pay. So I know my duties right beforehand, and I should, because when I buy these watches overseas, I have to take into consideration what it's going to cost me to bring them in, and that adds to the cost of the watch, much like service and things like that, or new straps. So I calculate all that in. But again, for somebody who is a private individual, if you're buying an expensive item overseas, most people put it on their wrist and they walk through customs and nothing really happens. Of course, I don't suggest you do that, because if you do get caught once, the fees get quite hefty, and the worst is you're going to have this flag on your passport or whatever in customs somewhere that you try to smuggle something in. You're not going to go to jail, but it's just, you don't want that, trust me. My biggest suggestion is either figure out what I just told you about, and all this stuff is Googleable. Googleable, is that a word? You can Google all the stuff, or you can call a customs broker. He can send you one of these forms. You can see what it looks like and do it on your own, or just enlist the help of a customs broker. They charge a small fee based on the duty that you pay. So if it's going to cost you extra 20, 30, or $50 to bring this in properly, do it that way, and that way you can feel all warm and fuzzy inside that you actually brought your watch in properly. You paid the customs on it, so there's no questions at a later time. Hope that answers your question somewhere. Let's see. Here's a good one from Gyro Kano. Question for Q&A. Do you monitor auction results? How much impact do prices realized at auction have on pricing? I have been looking at the JLC Master Geographic and noticed that recently they have either not sold or sold below auction estimates. Does that mean that the retail prices should come down to be in line with the market demand, or are there other factors that can explain this trend? Thanks, keep up the great videos. Auction prices are neither here or there. So let me just break it down this way. When you're talking about something very important, like an important Paul Newman Daytona, right, or an important Patek, go through auction, something that there's just not many out there of, right? And the ones that I'm talking about, the pieces that fetch in the millions, right? That's a good indicator for market value, right? That's a good indicator for somebody goes out there and finds one of those pieces somewhere tucked away in their great-grandfather's drawer, and all of a sudden they see that's a watch that fetched $1 million in auction. That's a good indicator. When you're talking about, and I hate to put the GLC Master Geographic into the category of run-of-the-mill pieces, but when you take one of those, it really makes no difference. First of all, most auctions will set the estimates either much, much lower to entice the public to bid, thinking they can buy the watch cheaper, or they'll set the estimates much, much higher, sort of subliminally telling the customer this is what the watch is worth. Either technique doesn't really work. At the end of the day, people bid what they bid, right? Because remember, auctions also have that pesky 20 to 25% buyer's premium. So anything you spend 10 grand on, you tack it on another $2,500 for the auction, right? Also, they charge the people that consign upwards of 10%. So the price is a little bit inflated that way as well. And then most people, such as myself, when I consign the auctions, I give them reserves. I don't just consign the stuff at a number. Like producer Michael said, I'm in it to win it. So sometimes I give it a very low reserve, like very close to my cost, sometimes at cost, or maybe even a little bit under when I want to get rid of something. But for the most part, I'm going to give them a reserve where I'm already making money. And I'm just using them as yet another platform to sell some pieces. And no, the prices or the retail prices will never be adjusted based on demand, based on what the auction results are, based on what customers are paying, or based on what the stuff is on eBay for. Because manufacturers raise retail prices pretty much every year based on cost of production going up, cost of materials going up, based on inflation, based on the market as well. You know, if the market is hot, they will raise retail prices more. If the market is soft, the best thing they'll do is not raise the retail prices, but you'll never see them lower retail prices. I think it only happens once, post the '08 crisis, when somebody actually lowered retail prices because they wanted to catch up with the currencies when they started fluctuating like crazy between two different markets, and there was just no room to increase retails at that point. So no, to answer your question is auction prices are often not an indicator to anyone, especially the manufacturers, to lower production or lower retail pricing. What it can be an indicator is to you to say, look, if these are the kind of monies that these pieces are fetching or not fetching in auction, it should be an indicator to you that you should be able to get out there and find that particular watch at a pretty great deal. And I'll tell you, most of the Jaeger master compressors are not fetching a whole lot of money at this point. I picked up I think I showed it on one of my what's on my desk. It was a rose gold Master Geographic Jaeger on a bracelet. Retails like $50,000, and I think I paid 16 or 17,000 for it. Like, it's out there, it's cheap, and mainly due to the fact that, again, the Master Geographic or the Master Compressor line, they made a lot of timepieces, you know, and that's why, you know, you sort of see the values dip. But all things considered, they still hold okay, they're still desirable. People still want various pieces from that line, and I'm assuming that's why you're asking that particular question. So hope this helps. I'm going to take one more, and well, I'm not getting out of here. I'm going to go back to sunbathing and swimming. But Peter Smith asks, okay, Roman, I will give it a go. What do you think the next hot watches are going to be? I know you have a crystal ball now, but this is just your personal prediction. I wanted to talk to you guys about predictions. I don't like doing predictions, and the reason I don't like doing predictions is because a prediction is nothing more than a guess. And I've often been honest with you guys, when I don't know something, I won't talk about it. I'll making predictions. There's a lot of guys out there that make prediction type videos on YouTube to gain clicks, subscribers, and views because, hey, the next hottest thing in the Rolex market, the next hottest thing in the AP market is going to be this and it's going to be that. I can give you a general statement. I mean, we all know that, you know, new Submariner is coming from Rolex, and based on what's going on today with all the stainless steel Rolexes, you know, I can honestly predict that the Submariner is going to come out of the gate and it's going to go through the roof, just like the GMT did, just like the Batman, etc., unless, of course, something changes. If we have some kind of a downturn in the economy, you know, pre-release of that Rolex, nobody has control of it, which is why I don't like doing prediction. But if everything stays the same way it is today, you're going to see the stainless steel Submariner get pretty damn hot. APs, they just switched over the Royal Oak line down to the 38 millimeter line. So what am I predicting for AP? The Royal Oak line is going to stay the same. And what I'm telling you now is something that you guys, I'm sure, already all know, which is, again, why I don't like doing prediction, because it's like, you know, okay, Captain Obvious, we already kind of knew all that. So in reality, there is no predictions from me. The Submariner is probably the only prediction that I would put forth I'm pretty confident in, and even still, that can change. I think next year we're going to see more of the same. More stainless steel hype from AP, from Rolex, more Richard Mille hype, because I don't see any merchandise out there, and I see prices are holding firm. You're going to see Nautiluses to continue to soften up unless they stop production altogether for next year, because, again, prices already dropped roughly about 30% on the gold models and some 20% on the steel stuff, and the demand is not there, and there's a lot of supply there. There's another prediction for you. But one thing I will predict for sure, and this is what I try to stress to you guys, to get out there and buy what you like, to buy based on history, based on complications, all the other brands that are seemingly in the shadows right now, you're going to continuously going to be able to get out there and pick up great smoking deals, whether it's across various complications such as tourbillons, minute repeaters, perpetual calendars from other brands other than the hot three I just mentioned, right? Historical timepieces, some older vintage pieces. You're going to be able to pick up a lot of iconic pieces across all brands, like certain Jaeger reversals, the Quorum Admiral cups that I've discussed in my videos before. You're going to be able to get out there and buy some independent stuff fairly inexpensive, because those are kind of, again, not holding the type of value they should hold. And that's my prediction for you guys. But a hopeful prediction is that you guys get out there, never mind the hype, never mind what's hot, what's not, never mind what the resale value is. At the end of the day, buy what you like first and foremost, because, again, watches are not an investment, they're just an expensive toy, as I always like to say. Well, guys, that's it for me for today. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different, or at least a bit of a different backdrop for this Q&A Tuesday. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those wonderful things that help my channel grow. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday.